Alrighty, we got the 33s on the foreman. Mostly doing this just because I have the 60% gear reduction in there now and it's really slow. So adding the 33s gets my gear ratio higher for cruising on trails and gets my wheel speed higher in first gear. So that's always good. But also I'm doing this to test out some new front axles I'm working on. The 33s, obviously a bigger tire stresses the axle more. And these are actually pretty heavy wheels, these old raceline wheels. So it's a great way to torture test stuff. I'm going to do a video next where I'm going to put dualies on it. And that's going to be the ultimate torture test. But I'm kind of stepping my way up in pain. But yeah, enjoy the video. A lot of this stuff's in my other videos, so it's kind of reintegrating. In this video, I'm going to show you how to run 33s on a Honda. This works for pretty much all of them. Foreman 500, Rubicon 500, Rancher's pretty similar. This one is a solid rear axle, so it already has the Tracci swing arm stretch I'm working on there, so that's pretty easy in the rear. But on the front, the tire was hitting this floorboard support. So what you got to do is remove the floorboard support, take it over to the vise, and flatten that bar out. See how it's not round anymore? So I just put it there and hammered it to flatten it, a little more clearance. And then I also drilled out these 4 holes, 1, 2, 3, 4, well I guess 6 holes. Drilled those out, one side's bigger, with I think it's a 13/32 drill bit. And I just did that to make it all easier to line up, because once you hammer it, it's obviously going to change, right? So I got to rebend it a little bit to get that lined up. I used to put them back here on this side of it, but you have to do a bunch of grinding to make it fit in there. That's a lot of work. Don't really feel like doing this. This gets you 90% of the way there. You'll only have slight rubbing at full lock, and that's pretty tolerable. This machine has a spring spacer up there, and it also has a bracket lift, so it sits pretty tall in the front. As long as you run low PSI in these 33 Aztecs, when I'm in mud, I run like 2 PSI. I'm trail riding, I run like 4 PSI. This is gonna work just fine. And yeah, so all I did was I pulled the floorboard plastic, took all those snaps and little bolts, and then I pulled this off and started hammering it and drilling it. Pretty straightforward. People ask all the time how to do this. A bunch of my buddies are kind of running the same setup. Works just fine. What you don't wanna do is cut off this piece of pipe here, like a lot of people do, because your floorboard gets way too flimsy. I don't recommend doing that. And I also don't recommend spending a ton of money for the metal floorboards, because they just crack your plastics and they never really fit quite right. And this is free. So, all right, that's how the clearance looks. That's at full lock. We got a little bit of clearance between the pipe and the floorboard. I'm probably gonna go ahead, take it off one more time and flatten it in this area some more. Make some marks. You don't want to just flatten the whole thing as you lose strength. And of course, remember that when the suspension compresses and the axle straightens out, the wheel's going to move that way. So it's going to actually come out this way and get a little bit more clearance as the suspension flexes. Might be able to show that to you by stepping on it. Yeah. So see, pretty cool, pretty simple. You have to run pretty wide offset if you run a 33 on these Hondas, especially if you're lifted. When you lift the front, like I said earlier, the wheels come together, just how suspension works. So I'm running 0 offset wheels with 3/4 inch adapters to make this work. By 0 offset, I mean 3.5, 3.5. I know that confuses some people. Yep, pretty simple mod. And now I can test out these new axles and see if I can break them. Actually testing a lot of stuff in here. This has the prototype 60% in it as well, which is working great. Super quiet, smooth gear ratio. We did a really good job on those gears. I'll make another video showing you how I design those gears. Another thing that I do, because I drilled all these holes out, I can actually clock the floorboard up a little bit. So you can see how this is a little bit of an angle. It makes your floorboard a little higher, and all the plastics have plenty of compliance to adjust to the floorboard being up a little bit higher. Just make sure you torque these 4 fasteners down real good, and it'll be nice and sturdy. Another thing that helps, especially if you have a stretch and you have plenty of rear clearance like I do, I drill a hole here 1/2 inch off, so you can actually push the plastics back 1/2 inch on the floorboard support. And then that means all of this is back 1/2 inch, so just gives you a little more plastic clearance up there. So if you do have any rubbing, it's just gonna hit that bar. It's not gonna hit the plastics. But as you can see, once you do that, I can bend that bar a lot more if I need to get more clearance. So Just a couple tips and tricks. You may occasionally have rubbing here. On a lot of machines, I end up trimming like this to keep that from happening. Probably go ahead and do that preemptively. This thing's a beater. I don't mind trimming a lot on it. Yep. And then I got rid of the pegs on this a long time ago. One was missing when I bought it, and I ride this thing without shoes sometime. So I just put some washers. All right, there they are. No more rubbing. So we hammered the floorboard, adjusted them up, moved the plastics back a little bit, did some minor trimming up here, and put it all back together. Pretty straightforward. Same way I've done on a lot of other machines. Now, if you want to run a 35, or if you're running portals, because portals make the tires swing, they change the kingpin offset a lot, so you got this kind of motion going on. If you're doing portals and stuff, you can probably trim all that skid plate plastic right there, and you could also put the arm behind the bracket, like I showed earlier. But yeah, that's all you have to do to run 33s, guys. It's not that hard. Keep in mind that if you're running a 33, your rack, your tire sticks out way farther than the rack, so it will flip over backwards on top of you just because the tires are so big. Then if you have raked arms or a stretch like I do, you really cannot trust the back rack to stop the machine from flipping backwards. So please be aware of that. If you're going to do water wheelies back real far, you probably want rear brakes. Of course, the drum brakes never work, so it'd be really nice if someone would work on a disc brake kit for that. Don't worry, I already am. But yeah, there you go. Oh yeah, I also trimmed under the headlights. You can see these fresh cuts right here. That's the 2 pieces from each side. So the tire won't hit there either. So yeah, hopefully we'll have no rubbing. We will go test this out at Rancho on Thursday and see how it does. Some of the pins are a little hard to get in after you just adjust all the plastics. So I had to drill the holes out here and here. This black plastic, I drilled the hole a little bigger just to help get the pin lined up, but really wasn't too bad.